of the things that you're not meant to have.
In case anybody wants to bring me a sandwich, mine is tuna and crisps, please.
Salt and vinegar crisps.
No. Oh, maybe.
Yes.
Oh, you're the best. No, the green ones. All right, you're very silly. Jeremy didn't show up for this. He's got places to be. We've got a session to run. QT team could be silly all day. We know that well. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to turn our screens on. Yes, we are. Yvonne, bring it back. David, Jane, Helen, Vicky, Nicola, Sarah, Georgina. I want to see you. Sharon, I haven't welcomed you yet, Sharon. Nikki, Nera, Jasmine, Rob, Angela, Zainab. These are your names. I want your faces. And there is somebody whose background chat is probably supposed to be muted. It was Hannah. All right, so welcome back, everybody. I would like to know in the chat, please, what you've eaten, because I'm a Jewish mother and I need to know that you're eating. What do you have for lunch? No, I don't want your face. I do. I like your face. What did you have for lunch, please? If you said sushi, yes, Elizabeth. Yes, sandwiches. Ooh, was there a wrap in there? I like it a wrap. Patties, salad. Okay, we're refreshed. I've had my power nap. And I'm ready to go. I really enjoyed that session with Flo Lance. I messaged Odette afterwards because Odette met with Stefan before. I didn't get a chance to. And what I loved was that he really knew the pain points of a tutor. I'm really interested to know next time we talk to him whether it's different in different countries. I'd be surprised if it is, because I feel like the personality type is probably the same. But I'm really pleased to speak with somebody who wants our input as they're developing the resource. So I think that's a fantastic opportunity for us. Do I have control of this slide deck, please? Hannah, how is this done now? Yes. Oh, yes. No. Yes. Zoom's come a long way. So meaningful quality assurance. Discuss. Meaningful quality assurance. Let's have a chat first, and I'm going to stop this share because you don't need to see my cheesy grin. Hannah, how do we stop share? Thank you, dear. Quality assurance. Can I have some knee-jerk reactions, please? Nicole, when I say quality assurance, you say? I know, I can see on your face. You say? I know. Jeremy, when I say quality assurance, you say?
Can we go back to sandwiches?
Sharon, when I say quality assurance, you say?
Something that PC World does.
Quality assurance, PC World, I see what you mean. It's really interesting. I want to come back to that in a second. So I visited a school when I was doing my NPQH. I was visiting all the local school leaders that would let me in, and I asked one of them what's her school improvement mission about, and she said quality assurance. And I thought, oh, I don't want to work in your school. That just sounds like she's doing cookie cutter work. All of her teachers making everything just the same, and the display board's just the same, and the presentations just the same, and the marking in the books just the same. And none of us are here to be just the same, right? So this is what that made me think of, the PC World thing. I visited a school, and I will name it. I visited the Michaela School. Has anybody visited the Michaela School or heard of it? So the Michaela School is run by, her surname is Birbal Singh. I can't remember her first name. And she's a really, really interesting character. She's really focused on knowledge-rich curricula. And she created a free school in central London with the goal of helping disadvantaged students to make a lot of progress really, really quickly. And when you go into the school, it is run on military lines. In fact, her book is called Song of the Tiger Teachers, I think. And it's everyone's laughing. And I kid you not. Well, firstly, it's set up for visitors, this school. So they'd be delighted to have you if you ask them to come and visit. The children are trained to show people around. They're trained to talk to visitors in the playground, and to advocate for their school and the style of their school. The workbooks are identical. The school bags are identical. And when we were chatting in the playground, my lovely year 1 teacher, who was like the softest person you can imagine, asked one of the children why she's wearing 100 badge, or badge with 100 on it. She said, "Oh, that's 100% attendance, miss." And one of the other kids in the playground, these are year 7s, one of the other ones said, "But it's hard sometimes, isn't it? Because, if you're not feeling well," the third child perks up with, "It's okay, they give you a bucket." Okay, so this is a really, really intense environment where the children were really, really pushed to achieve what was expected, including 100%. They marched into school, into the lunch hall, chanting Invictus, and they sat in family groups and were given a philosophy discussion question at lunchtime. All of this in theory is awesome. In reality, it looked exhausting to be a member of that school. So when we talk about quality assurance, meaningful quality assurance, we are going to remember that we are looking for Lauren-shaped holes and Nicola-shaped holes and Nicole-shaped holes all the way in Australia, where it's cold and dark right now, which really blows my mind. What I think is really, really interesting, to pull back on that thread that we spoke about earlier, is that in the same way that tutoring is precise and lovely because it works so closely with the needs of the student, our approach to our tutoring, our culture, our performance indicators, whatever you want to call it, our goals for our tutoring should match who we are and what our culture is. And it should start with, what are we trying to achieve? So this session that I attended yesterday with Dylan Williams was all about literacy in understanding educational research. And his big goal is that we should have, well, one of them, so I don't want to speak for somebody who has really awesome goals. One of the things that he focuses on is enabling teachers to interpret the research. Yeah. And he talks about all the weaknesses in all the meta-analyses that we've all looked at, the EEF and John Hattie. And he's like, John Hattie knows I don't agree with visible learning. So it was quite interesting having, like, these greats arguing with each other and really saying, we don't know. The best we can do is make best bets. So the approach that I've taken in building out this quality assurance process for tutors is based on best bets. And it's based on insights and discussions. It is not based on much empirical evidence, but I think you'll find it really, really aligned with common sense and what works well. And I think that what we'll do together is build out the research to see how it can impact your tutoring. So this is an iterative process, and I really want to see and learn how it feels for you as we go. I'm going to share with you, Hannah, can we share screen again, please? I'm going to share with you 2 principles that the International Tutoring Framework is based on. And it's really, really important that it's international. It's also really important that it is inclusive. So I wanted to build a framework that suits big tutoring companies and small tutoring companies. And most of you have heard me say before that I believe that every tutor, and actually every professional, needs to feel safe, skilled, and supported. And the reason why that's such an urgent need in tutoring is because we've left our safe walls, either as teachers or as university students or as professionals, wherever it is that we've come from that has taught us to be compliant. We're now out there on our own. And so we need to create something new. And You know that I'm really, really eager. Catherine, thank you. You know that I'm really, really eager not to recreate school for tutors. Yeah. So quality assurance that is opt-in, learning, professional development that is not prescribed for you, that you opt in to learn what you need next so that you can find a Kaylee-shaped approach that matches the needs of your life right now. So to unpack safe, skilled, and supported, which is actually really, really intuitive. So let's do this together. Can you just throw in the chat for me what you think safe might mean in the context of being a tutor? Actually, can we do some unmuting as well? Come on, bring it. It's okay to try it. Excellent. Excellent. You're safe to try it. You're safe to fail. There's not too far to fall, or there's a mattress at the bottom, or somebody will catch you, or somebody will forgive you. Awesome. Thank you. Personal development is different for each person. Safer recruitment. Awesome. So let's unpack safer recruitment for a second. When I first started in school leadership, I did a lovely online course with NSPCC on safer recruitment. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. It was eye-opening. It was a really efficient and effective course. And it taught me what needs to happen when you're bringing an adult into a school to make sure that they're safe. And I'll give you one lovely thing that I learned there. When a school advertises for a new teacher, they should put on the advert, "We are committed to safer recruitment practices." And the reason why they should do that is because it deters predators. The minute that they know that somebody in the school has been on a safer recruitment process, will be checking 2 references, will be interviewing with somebody else in the room, has commitment to safety, it deters people who are looking for chinks in the armor. They'll go somewhere else. So a safe culture is one where we all put up the barriers and say, you're not welcome here. If you are not safe, you are not welcome here. So yes, safeguarding, that's right. Thank you so much. Safeguarding training, Andrea, to unpack that for a second. So in addition to who you bring in to work with a child, you also need to know that that person has the safeguarding knowledge that they need in case a child protection issue arises. This is not a session on child protection. It's just a reminder that that's what safe means in the policies level. Clear boundaries. That's exactly right. The culture element of that, Nicola, is the clear boundaries that we're looking for. And that really follows through into everything that we do. When I first started out in teaching, I think this is how I got my first job, actually. I said, firm hands and warm heart. And I think that that's a useful understanding of how the boundaries, the firm hands, enable you to be warm within that space. So let's think about skilled for a second. What does it mean, not just to know that you're skilled, but to show that you're skilled? What does skilled mean in tutoring? Don't be shy. What does skilled mean in tutoring? Experience, knowledge, safeguarding training, lovely. Subject knowledge and the knowledge of how to deliver that effectively, lovely. Confidence in knowing next steps, that's exactly right. So being able to break learning down into its baby steps and building knowledge up so that you're not leaving any gaps. That's what leads to mastery. Competence and competence and confidence through experience and knowledge, lovely. And when you say experience, you're also talking about the skills that you've developed through that experience. Approachable, that's excellent, Zainab. It's also who you are as a person. There's a skill in being open and available. Experience, methodology. So variety of methodologies. So a rich tutor toolbox, because a different thing will be needed with every student, and you have to have it ready in the moment to be responsive. Subject knowledge, past pedagogy equals skilled. Andrea, I will absolutely agree with you. I think you missed the person bit there. Unless it's sitting inside pedagogy, you need to know your subject. You need to know how to deliver it. But we also know that you need to be bright and engaging. I'd love to hear more about that. Committed to grow. So there's a skill in being that person who has, thank you, Andrea. There's a skill in being that person who has a a growth mindset and modeling that growth mindset, like Nicola was talking about before. So we know what skilled looks like. And I think the more you dive, to my mind, this is like one of those rich seams that you can pursue and really, really unpack what skilled means in your delivery area. So last Love Tutoring session, Atul ran a session on algebra tiles, was it, Helen? And I think what was really interesting about that, and we've had a conversation about it since, was, and I have no idea what an algebra tile is. What I loved about it was how granular it was, because when we start nerding out in the skills of our specific tutoring, all right, I won't show you what's on my desk right now. When you start nerding out on the skills involved in tutoring, it's a reciprocal, it's like a virtuous cycle, isn't it? Because the more knowledgeable you become, the further you can niche down and make improvements for your students. So let's just look at that third bit, that lovely green circle. I will be making a presentation tomorrow for you on the importance of community and membership and participation. But just give me a sense here of what, let's say it the other way around. How does it feel not to be supported as a tutor? Scary, thank you. That was honest. Panicky. Abandoned, blimey. Alone, thank you. That's exactly what we were talking about this morning. And Dee has a lovely way. Dee, are you here? Dee has a lovely way of saying this, which is, I didn't know I needed to community until I had community. So you don't even realize what the source of the panic is. Helen Reid said very, very clearly this morning, she lacked confidence. She thought she was an imposter. Yeah, but actually all she needed to know that she wasn't alone. No sense of value. Thanks, Jeremy. I think that's really, really powerful. So there's something about feeling supported that also makes you feel valuable. And it comes right back full circle to being safe. Yes. So when you are supported, it's almost the overlap in my mind between safe and supported is really, really strong. And it's quite hard to imagine being safe if you're not supported. And certainly a supportive environment must feel safe. So there's one other set of principles that I want to share with you before we roll our sleeves up into the audit. Spoiler alert. That's this. The 3 keys of effective tutoring. And again, this is not based on 6 years of empirical research. This is based on insight and agreement from my peers. But I'd love to know what you feel about this. I believe that the 3 keys of effective tutoring are relationship, responsiveness, and reflectiveness. And I believe that when you turn each one, you get closer to bringing the most effective learning through. So can I hear your thoughts, please, on whether you agree that relationship, responsiveness, and reflectiveness pretty much sum up the characteristics of effective tutoring? Jane, Nicole, I haven't heard from you yet. Okay, thank you, Helen. Cheers, Jeremy. Okay, awesome. Did I miss anything there? Is there anything that you feel like might have dropped off in my quest for alliteration? Okay, fine. So let's go. I created a grid for you. And I understand that in some of the breakouts this morning, the second breakout, there were some conversations around what the International Tutoring Framework is. And really what I've done is I've built an inclusive, so it's open-ended. It's not just for one type of tutor business. It's not just for one type of subject or specialism. It's just unpacking what safe, skilled, and supported look like when you, what's the word? Cross-reference them with relationship, responsiveness, and reflectiveness. So to work through them in turn, because you won't see them in this format in the audit, because I didn't want to be repetitive. In terms of safe relationships, I've said safer recruitment practices, which we just discussed, safeguarding training, and then professional dialogue. Good luck with that, Elizabeth. I think it's interesting to question why I've put professional dialogue there. Have we got any insights on that, please? I think it pulls back to that scary line, doesn't it? Why do you need professional dialogue? Because we don't know what we don't know. Awesome. Thank you, Georgina. Appreciate that. So safe and responsiveness. And that really pulls right into our safeguarding training and the 3 R's: recognize, respond, report. Safer recruitment practices, safeguarding training, and access to a coaching program. Any insights on whether or not you agree that that's what being responsive in the creating of safe cultures looks like? Why do you think coaching might be there? What is it in the power of coaching that supports responsiveness? Yeah, absolutely right. Growth. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Oh, very nice. You've got somebody to point the way, a lead learner. Excellent. Ah, you're with me. Thank you, Kathleen. Welcome back. Can't see you there. Okay, dokes. So let's, no, it's not didactic. It's quite the opposite, isn't it? It's responsive, it's encouraging, and it's really built on that relationship that we started by talking about. So let's look at the skilled column. We're talking about being skilled in building relationships. So there I've put down safeguarded training, because that's where we put our boundaries, 7 Ps, the code of conduct. I've also put blended learning and effective teaching tools. So why would you need those in your skills box, in your tutor tools, in order to build relationship? Can you give me an example of what that might look like? Say, for example, I was working with you with my screen off because I couldn't find the button. That's right. That's exactly right. It's about clearing barriers. And it's about optimizing the environment, isn't it? Superb. Let's move on. So skilled and responsive. For me, this is the sweet spot, and it's beautiful that it landed right in the middle of this matrix, because come on, somebody do the work for me here. Why have I put the skill of being, why have I put skilled and responsiveness as basically what sums up the magic of tutoring?
I can jump in if you want, Julia.
Yes, thank you, Andrea.
I think that central to what a lot of people are looking for with tuition is that element of improving your skill in whatever it is, whether it is something that is to do with well-being, study skills, whether it is a particular subject. So I think the ability to have the knowledge to be able to craft that in addition or instead of what they're learning at school is vital to and should be central to any tuition relationship. And I think that sense of rigor and knowledge is what people come to, and I think that's what we should be expecting with tuition. I think it needs to be supportive, but it also needs to have skill right at the heart of it.
Awesome. Every time you say the word rigor, it makes me want to sit up straight. Anyone else want to add to that? We've been speaking about tutor toolboxes, haven't we? And Helen said, you've got to be able to put your hand in and pull out something else for the next student. Oh, go on, Georgina. No, firstly unmute.
No, I don't think you want to. There was rigor that reminds me of my forensics. We definitely don't need to elaborate on that.
Okay. Rigor. I see that. Rigor. Ah, okay, no, got it. Then I missed the pun. Okay, so skilled and reflectiveness. Well, Nicola sorted that out for us, hasn't she? The skills of reflective practice. Yeah, Kathleen, go ahead. Did you want to say something? No? Okay, fine. So the skill of reflectiveness is really, really And there's a lot of literature on being a reflective practitioner in education. And I like to say that, you know, in this way, tutors, all educators are like dentists and plumbers. Because I take a dentist or I take a plumber and I can't see what they're doing under the surface there. Yeah, I really don't have a handle. It's like taking on a lawyer. You don't know whether or not the contract is saying what it's supposed to say. There's an immense element of trust when you take on an expert and when you can't follow them and evaluate their work. So a parent and a student has to understand, has to trust that you are doing your own reflective practice so that you are doing your best work for the student. And that element of professional integrity is, to me, one of the bedrocks over here. I'd love to point out to you at this stage that this is a quality assurance process. It's not impact evaluation. At no stage have I suggested that you measure things in this way, or ask these sorts of questions, or deliver or structure your things in any specific way. Because going back to the evidence-based best bets, what I've given you here is a structure that is conducive to effective tutoring, so that whatever your size and whatever your structure and whatever your specialism, if you build these systems into your practice, so you're not going to be evaluating your outcomes in this session. You're going to be evaluating your structures for optimizing your outcomes. So it's an upstream solution. It's building a better bridge so that you don't have to worry about impact so much, because you know you're optimizing your delivery. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, so let's look at relationship and supportiveness. And I think here the key element is that in order for you to be positive and supportive and professional and resilient and respectful and all the things that we know your students need from you, all that warmth that you know your students need from you, you have to fill your own cup first. So the peer and the mentor support is as much about catching you on your rough days as it is about cheering your wins. Professional development community. And I put blended learning here as well because, hello, Melissa Harvey. Turn your screen on so I can smile at you. I think what people are going to stop using the chat because they know I'm going to call them out. I think what's lovely about the blended learning is that it gives all that flexibility so that you can access the content in your own time. So I said to Patrick from Stefan from Flowlands just now, most of us will be watching his presentation on recording later. Guess what? It was a pre-recorded recording that he delivered in a live session that we'll be catching as a recording. That's how the world works nowadays. So although it's a little bit with the time loops, I very, very much like blending so that we're really intentional about what we do together live, how we can be responsive, and then which bits are the content delivery. The effective learning tools enable you also to be responsive. Yeah. So when we look at supported and responsiveness, we're looking at the systems that allow us to be responsive. And I think that piece about effective learning tools, and there was a whole lot of conversation that we had when we developed this around effective teaching tools, effective resources. But when you put the focus on the learner, you're always going to be measuring the right thing. Yeah. So an effective learning tool, could you give me an example of when you've used a tool in a way that's worked really well for you, please? That was a ridiculously open question, wasn't it? Bit paper, bit paper, bit paper, bit paper. Helen is not sponsored by Bit Paper, but she jolly well should be. Scaffolding, awesome. Come on. Ooh, what is Numble? Oh, lovely. Socratic questioning, algebra trial. So these are all resources. And I very often would use a pegboard with my key stage 1 and 2 learners, because you can do so much with a handful of pegs and a board in times tables and counting, and Numble is basically a numbers game. You guys are distracting me with this really awesome stuff. So what we're saying is that we can continue our responsiveness by having the right resources available. Supported and responsiveness and reflective is the last piece. This time last year, I didn't have the support I needed to build qualified tutor in the way that it needed to be. And then Hannah came into my life, and Odette came into my life. And all of a sudden, those ideas that were nascent, they were being born, but they needed nurturing. All of those ideas and threads and creativity came to light. And that was supportiveness. So you guys are awesome. And you know what you've made and you know what your wins are. But it is much, much easier to sustain that power when you've got a supportive system around you. So I've put here peer and mentor support. I've put here professional development community. I've also put being able to measure your own progress so that you're not stabbing in the dark. And when you feel good about yourself, you think you're doing great. And when you're feeling low for all sorts of other reasons, all of a sudden it feels like it's not going well. So there's a certain level of objectiveness that you get from being in a supportive environment. No, you're not right. That was fine. Yeah, those kinds of things. Really, is that the best you could do? Those kinds of relationships is what you want to really be able to take your reflectiveness to the next level. So this is where, that was all your teeing up, and it took me 34 minutes. The rest of the session is yours. Let me tell you what we're going to do. Please open this QR code. Hannah's given you the link also. You're opening your own audit. And we're going to work through it together, but independently. And what we're going to do is we're going to take feedback breaks every 15 or so minutes. So I'm going to give you some time to go through these questions. Can I have a thumbs up, please, when you are in the audit? You should have that lovely window that Hannah just put up there. Lovely, thanks, Zainab. Oh, thanks, Nicole. Excellent. Nicola, have you found it yet? Great. Jeremy, you with us? Yes, 2 thumbs. Great. Eleanor, thank you. Nice to see you. Okay, great. Okay, so open the audit, drop your name in. I've kept it as light as possible in terms of, data and information. Start filling it in. I'll give you 10 minutes. Ask any questions in the chat along the way. And then I'm going to ask you to start sharing what you're noticing. So you've got 10 quiet minutes to work now. When you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat. I am here for you. Right, I can't take it any longer. Georgina's given us a juicy question, so let's pop off chat. Siri will start the alarm in a few minutes. Georgina, ask us your question.
I got to how will you ensure that your tutors are using learning tools efficiently to ensure effective tutoring? And everything that comes to mind feels a little bit like I'm hovering over them and being an unpleasant manager who's wanting to correct them,
Awesome.
or being creepy and diving into their lessons, which I don't really want to do. So I've not found a balance that feels really comfortable for me.
I'm going to open the question out to the group in a second. I just want to point out two things. Firstly, there are two branches on this audit. So Georgina is on the tutor business track, and Dee, you're probably on the individual tutors track. And so Nicola, you'll also be doing the same track as Georgina, won't you? So what are your thoughts about how to not micromanage and yet to ensure that they have what they need to be doing their best possible work?
I think using the phrase sharing best practice helps, rather than saying, I'm going to come in and check if you're doing X and Y, and sort of asking the question, what do you feel has been useful, or what tools have you used with a particular student, and how can that be cross-transferred to other tutors who work with students of the same age, maybe doing the same qualification, and how you can put that in a bucket and share it.
I like that. Ask them what they feel is going well.
Yeah.
And if they say nothing, then they need some help.
Yes, and then you can suggest, well, I had a go with this student and it works in this way because, and sort of providing an area. I'm sure you've got shared folders where there's resources and other bits you can bob into.
Does she ever?
The queen of spreadsheets and folders, definitely. I think that's really helpful to bob in and out of, and also I think giving them an opportunity to talk about things when you're not there. I know you want to be part of it and you want there to be some kind of feedback, but what we're going to try and do next year is team tutors up in pairs. I'm not sure exactly how we'll do that yet, but it's like a co-coaching system. And so again, it's finding the time that something doesn't take too long to do, finding the opportunity to do it. And it can be via email, or it could be, right, I've got 10 minutes, we're both free this lunchtime, let's drop in. And finding a way of trying to collate that as well is useful. But I think having the conversation is probably the most important thing to begin with, and then kind of moving on from there.
I like that, because this is kind of what I was thinking as you were sharing your suggestion to talk to them about what they're doing. I feel like if I go in and say how things are going, they're just going to go, yeah, great. But maybe if they were talking to each other, they would share what's not great.
Yes, and then hopefully you can pick back up on that, whether there can be a lead person who asks the other people and then they feed back to you, and in sort of smaller group situations. I mean, one of the things I've been trying to do this year with my sort of half-hour fortnightly meetings was to hand over to different people for different sessions. But we found that in actual fact, I was doing quite a lot of housekeeping. Then I wanted to do 10 minutes on a particular topic of something just to upskill a little bit. And we ran out of time. So I think trying to find an additional time to put that in, you've got to then have the conversation of cost benefit. Are you then paying people for that time? Is it included in the tuition package, the tuition fee? Because obviously you're not just paid for the time that you have that one-to-one with the students. It's the emails before, the emails after, the planning, what have you, what is in that package, and does that involve what does that involve, and just having it very clear what is involved with that. And so I don't use the phrase hourly rate, I use a tutor fee, and what's sort of within that fee, and that I found that's quite useful language to use. That helps.
I like that.
It's really intentional, that approach, isn't it? And it all follows right through. I wonder whether you could move the housekeeping to a self-paced delivery. somebody just shared a Loom recording with me because we weren't able to do a meeting. And I think that that's a really interesting way to be able to share screen, say what you need to, don't have to script it, don't even have to type it, but they don't necessarily have to show up. So you're not taking that they can access it in their own time is that point, isn't it?
Yeah.
I certainly, when in my school, I inherited a meeting process that was all about the housekeeping. And the minute that I gave them that time back and found a different way to get the information to them, they felt like I'd given them time back. And that's like the best thing you can do for an educator, right? Andrea, are you back with us? I can see you're doing the Zoom dance, but you made a suggestion in the chat that I'd love to hear. Is Andrea back with us, Hannah?
I am. Hello.
Darling, go ahead.
I'm in and out with bad signal. Yeah, I think anything dialogic. So looking, I think basically it's kind of already been said, but the idea about asking, sort of, or having a suggestion of best practice and said, oh, what have you been using perhaps with that? Have you found any of those useful? So it becomes like a bit of a dialogue in how those are being used, as opposed to just the didactic tools that you should use, because obviously you've got people that are either working for you or you're working yourself and you kind of know what works. So I think sometimes it's either having that conversation with others, if you're in a sort of an organisation, or with other independent people as well, about what's worked for you, and discussing different types of of approaches. So it does become conversational rather than something that's enforced, really.
There's a lot here in terms of leadership skills, isn't there? And I'm really, really curious how much is about the relationship that you have with your tutors, and how much of that is defined by which kind of tutors you are taking on. So I know that you're working with science graduates, professional scientists, Georgina, and then Nicola, are you working with undergrads? Did you say that before?
Yeah, a combination of graduates
Right.
and undergrads. Yeah.
Right. And then do we have anybody in the room who's employing qualified teachers? Okay, because that's a whole nother blend again of relationships, isn't it? And it becomes quite complicated. Getting the hang of that relationship is pretty defining, isn't it? And when it unravels, it's really difficult, because we started off this query by Georgina saying, I'm just trying to help them get the right stuff, but I'm worried they'll resent it. Jade, welcome. It's really nice to see you.
Hi.
So currently we're working on the international tutoring framework. And I think next time we pause, I'm going to ask one of the independent tutors to jump in and tell us how that's working for you guys. Are you okay with going back to it for another 5 or 10 minutes now, seeing if you can make some more progress? Of course, you can flick all the way through the questions if it helps you to get a shape in your mind of where you're going, and then you can come back, because the whole document is completely editable. You can move back and forth at your own time. Please, Siri. Set a 7-minute timer.
7 minutes, starting now.
Sorry, I thought I was on mute. It could have been much worse. Okay, where are we up to? Where are we up to? Which of the independent tutors would like to share some of the insights that are coming up for them?
I think mine is just, it was nice to see because obviously I did something very similar to this before getting accredited. But even in that short space of time, how much has changed for the better, I should probably say. So there's a lot more, and there's a lot more I've thought about potentially without even realizing till now. So that was positive for me.
That's blinding. Can you give us an example, please?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that was raised to my attention was that I've got a business network, but I didn't really have any support within the tutoring space. I wasn't using it to the best of my ability. So I think just showing up a bit more on that front. Probably also working with schools as well. It's something that I've never done before. I've done maybe workshops or whatever, but I've done it through a medium where it's through a club or through something that I've maybe helped out with, but never actually for tutoring, if you like. So I've got a new partnership with a local school starting in August. So that's fantastic. So it says things like that you think, right, well, fast forward 3 months, a lot can change. So I think it's a good thing to put things into perspective and remind yourself that there's a lot changed.
That's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And also it makes me think of that measurable progress element, that just having this resource, you can use this resource as often as is healthy, not too often, but you can come back to this, quarterly and give yourself a chance to just see what looks different now. Jeremy, I'm really struck by your statement that working with schools is something you always want to do more of. I wonder whether there's something that you could be doing more or differently that you could pick up from the colleagues here to lean into that.
I talk to schools with letters and phone calls and things like that, but not regularly. I think having a link with a school would be just really helpful, because the curriculum does change, not as much as maybe it could, but maybe as much as people think it changes. I think the basic skills are still there, but I still feel, even though I don't want to be in a school, I really feel it would be valuable to talk to schools. Always have done. So I want a good open relationship with them. So
there's two elements there. There's the knowledge base, and
yeah,
there's the relationship for getting work.
Mostly the knowledge base.
Mostly the knowledge base.
I've got plenty of work. It's more the knowledge.
Okay. And are there schools? Are you suggesting that you'd like to join insects in schools?
Possibly, but just have a link that I could ask questions. Is when something comes up and the child says I don't do it that way at school, then I like to know what that way is and if it's changed. And usually it hasn't. It's just that the teachers found a shortcut, but it's just good to discuss it with a professional, because I have done that. So yeah.
So we're talking about a curriculum lead. We're talking about a subject lead, maybe.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
that's really interesting. That's a new idea.
Could be a rebellious teacher, though.
Could be a rebellious teacher who's sneaking you the inside track. The other thing it could be is one of us here who's, either also still working in school or pretty confident in that specific area. So maybe initially I thought that what you'd said in the chat was that you like more work in schools.
No, I've done that. Yeah,
right.
I'm glad to be out of that.
Oh, that's interesting.
That doesn't mean I wouldn't want to do group work as a tutor. So yeah. Anybody
started with group work recently? We had a conversation about that just before, didn't we?
That's what part of my link with the school will be. So it will be small, sort of 8 to 10 pupil workshops and things like that. So for me, that'll be new, but I'm more than happy to sort of share, within the community what comes out of that. Because my idea was to kind of document it for myself. So if people want to know, then you can know. It might be useful for some.
That's gorgeously generous. Thank you so much. I'm also struck because Georgina said earlier, what did you say about group work?
It's like a dark art. I really don't understand how it works.
It's a dark art. And I said to you, it's like cooking a roast. You just have to not burn the potatoes whilst the beans just need a little bit of time, and you just have to keep all the plates spinning at the same time to mix the metaphors. So that, yeah, that's exactly right. Lots of us on here teach groups, and Charlotte's certainly the queen of that. I've been thinking, as we've been having our quiet time, about those me-shaped holes that we create, and how Charlotte's background was very much on the drama side, and so running those big groups suited her. And Georgina, you're much more of the one-to-one and the caring. So that it's really, really interesting how we're sort of leaning into our niches. Eleanor, what's showing up for you?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm quite new to all of this, so I quit teaching in December, was thinking about going in a totally different direction, and then 2 months in, I just thought I'll just do a bit of tutoring just to make some money, and then really enjoyed it. So I've just got really into it. But because I'm quite new, I've done asking lots of questions on Facebook and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just kind of working out what I'm doing, really. So it's a bit. But,
Woo!
yeah.
That's pretty immense.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's been really good. But so yeah, I thought I'd just join in and just
Fantastic.
hit,
Sorry.
So yeah, I think for me, like I said on the memo message, it was the whole, I mean, obviously I think about safeguarding, like something came up this week, actually. One of my friends has got her kid is in year 10, and she was talking about getting one-to-one tutoring, and then I ultimately said, oh yeah, no, you can come over to mine or whatever. And then I thought about it, and I thought, actually, really have a 10-year-old boy in my house when no one else is there, and because I've only tutored one-to-one year 13 students who are 18, like until this point, and I was like, and all my other ones are online, and so they, they're all at home with family there, doors open, all that kind of stuff. So I've thought of that kind of thing, but it just suddenly dawned on me that I really need to think about that. So and I've got lots of plans and what to do to make sure that I'm not alone with this child.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I haven't really, and obviously I've done safeguarding as a teacher, loads of it, and some of it very recently, only just before I left. But I hadn't really thought about the whole doing a proper safeguarding course for tutors. So
Safeguarding for tutors is where all this started, because knowing what safe looks like with tutoring and building out your own code of conduct, whatever that is for you and suits you, is you have to be really, really intentional, because nobody's going to spoon feed it to you. So I think you asked whether or not you can access safeguarding with us, and you absolutely can.
yeah, I've sent an email already.
Took you so long, but I think what's really, really lovely is this mindset of, oh, I don't have an answer for that, and just leaning into that instead of getting panicky and closing that door, because I know exactly what things are stressing me out right now that I haven't asked clearly in my own mind. Do you know what I mean? Things that I haven't dealt with. We've all got those icky bits that we don't want to address, and I think having safe spaces to go through those is exactly the magic. Could you, Eleanor, what's your subject?
Chemistry.
Oh, okay, fantastic. You're in good company here. There's lots of scientists here. So where are you guys up to in the audit? I would love some feedback on it when you're getting towards the end.
I finished before, so.
Fantastic. Is there anybody else who's still doing it and wants a little bit more time, or should I leave you to do that in your own time? And actually I would love to gather some feedback before we wrap up. Would that be all right with you? Okay, so let's do that. If you are with us but with screens off, I would love to have the screens on now, because thank you, Yvonne, because it's much easier to get reflections and feedback from people when you can see them. Did you find that process helpful? Thank you. Could you explain why, please?
I think I've said this to you before, but there's so many things that I just do, and until I think about why I do them or why I do them a particular way, I don't really necessarily improve on them, if that makes sense. So if I just kind of deal with something as it comes up and I never really think about what I'm doing, why, I'm probably making myself more work and also could probably improve it. Actually having to answer the question and document and answer really makes me think about what I'm doing. And I've actually done this before, and having done it, there were loads of things that I thought, oh yeah, how do I do it? And I've actually documented, made it into a process since. So answering it this time was brilliant.
Oh, so you measured your own progress and gave yourself a pat on the back?
Yes.
Awesome. Iced coffees all. I really I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't gone to that event last night. I would have had nothing to talk about with you guys today. So one of the things that Dylan Williams said yesterday was about school leadership, and he said, before somebody removes something from a system, you jolly well have to know why it was put there in the first place, right? So he used the example that I think he said this was a short story from G.K. Chesterton. He said, a man wanted to remove a fence from a field. And the farmer said, if you can work out why it was there, why it was put there, then you can remove it. But until you understand what the thinking was behind putting that fence up, you're not qualified to remove it. So interrogating your own systems, and we're lucky because our systems are light. We've only just made them up, right? Jeremy, you've been creating your systems organically and systematically over the last however many years, and you know what the thinking was behind them. If you inherit a system, like you go into a big school, you don't quite know what the thinking was. And sometimes it's just that it suited them on a Wednesday afternoon. And so, you know, sports is always done on a Wednesday afternoon, but now the PE teacher isn't available on a Wednesday afternoon. So understanding the source of ideas is really, really important. So why do I do it like that? And what am I trying to achieve? It's too easy to gloss over because it's much more fun to play with Canva or spreadsheet. Natasha, welcome. Have you been doing the ITF with us?
Hello, I have,
Hello.
yeah.
And how's it been?
I'm new to tutoring.
Welcome.
I haven't finished teaching yet. I'm head of science at a local school, and I have been for many years. And I'm taking the plunge in July, and have been doing a bit of tutoring. Yes, I'm just here to learn really, and listen and find out a little bit about how it all works. So I'm right at the beginning, and it would be really good to get some advice so I don't feel like I'm starting right at the beginning, and I can sort of like learn a little bit before I make lots of mistakes along the way. No, I've got a lot of experience, and I've really enjoyed the tutoring I've done. And I haven't done any groups yet or anything like that, but I've just had a go at it, and felt it was rewarding and something that I'd like to pursue. Not quite sure how yet, so hence my feedback was sort of a bit vague, because I don't really know where I'm going. Answering those questions were quite difficult, yet. But I'd like to be part of a wider community so I can learn a bit more. I couldn't start earlier because I was teaching, but I've joined a little bit later, and
awesome.
Feel like I've missed quite a bit.
Oh no, like you come in halfway through the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. If you go back to the beginning of this day, you'll know everything, because we've really been telling stories today. So welcome. In my mind, what you've just described is putting the cutlery holder in the drawer before you put the cutlery in. So for you, the framework will be knowing that these, you need spoons, because you've got a spoon space now. Yeah. So you need community, you need safer recruitment practices, because you've got this framework now that's empty that you can now start populating, which is a really interesting place to be. Anyone else got any other insights for me? Okay, so I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to give you a break before we have 3 really, really focused half-hour sessions. And half-hour sessions exhaust me because Nicola, I was exhausted after your session because what happens is that the delivery is so chock full that there's tons to follow. So please take some time to rest now, and then we will see you back at Hannah 2:30. Yeah, 2:30. You've got dyscalculia with an awesome his name's escaped me and I don't have it written in front of me.
Robert Jennings.
So Robert Jennings and his colleague Kat created a dyscalculia organization, and they're so committed. I'm really impressed with them. So that's going to be really interesting to learn about how to support students with maths anxiety. Hands up if you are not a maths teacher. I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm just going to remind you that you still need to know how to support